Snaking its way through the countryside of Southern Virginia, this beautiful 3.2-mile strip of asphalt has been around since 1957. But now, for the second time in 3 years, the Virginia International Raceway is home to the SCCA National Championship Runoffs.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody, as action here at the 59th running of the SCCA National Championship Runoffs continues here at VIRginia International Raceway. I'm Greg Creamer, joined by Tom O'Gorman and Hayward Wagner, Director of Experiential Programs for SCCA, covering all the action down in the pits. We have a good one coming up for you here. It is the Touring 4 race, and for those of you just tuning in, just a little bit of an update with the immense storm from Ian that blew through yesterday. We had to postpone one of the races. It ran earlier this morning, and as a result, they have shortened all of the races from 40 minutes to 35 minutes time, still 15 laps if they can get it in, and shortening the times up between the races a little bit. So things are going to be hustling along as we get ready to go here today. But interesting conditions that we're looking at right now, Tomo, as the rain has stopped. It's a little misty out there. Absolutely no wind compared to the 50-mile-an-hour gusts we had yesterday. I'm not sure if you're driving hard on full-on rain tires here, you might be struggling a little bit by the end of this race if the rain doesn't come back.
Yeah, good morning, Greg. I think today we're going to be expecting changing conditions throughout the entire day, and we are on day 2 of the runoff, so there's been a lot of chance to study. But yesterday, everyone drove in some scale of monsoon, essentially,
yeah,
or
exactly.
literally hurricane. So today, with it being basically, I mean, what you see now in the air on this shot is mist and humidity kind of on the camera lens itself. The air is clear, but very, very moist. There is no wind anywhere to be found, but the track is still damp. So the only thing drying the thing out is going to be these Touring 4 race cars.
And it is going to be a show, certainly. Touring 4 is one of those categories. Its first year was 2013. It sort of evolved from showroom stock B and C. And it is a category that is getting pretty popular, and it certainly has some names in it. As a matter of fact, the guy that's going to be starting on pole has a total of 16 gold medals in runoffs competition, a stunning 26 medals total in terms of top threes. Comes in as the defending champ and nails his 12th pole position. That's John Heinricy. Devin Anderson, who starts alongside of him, don't have a lot of experience, of knowledge about Devin, but obviously very quick, running one of the tech sport, Subaru BRZs. Tech sport's based right here at VIR, so track knowledge, that's their strong suit.
Of course, and Devin, the son of Kevin Anderson, who has run tech sport racing in professional racing in World Challenge for the most part over the last couple of years, probably close to a decade at this point. So Devin has actually come up through working with the team and now is in the car. He's done a little bit of World Challenge racing himself, I believe, and bringing that 2019 Subaru BRZ up onto the front row with a legend like John Heinricy is an impressive performance. But then we have another big name, Mast, right behind out of the Phoenix Performance stable in another very familiar but slightly different car.
Absolutely, and it's time for us to get down to the third member of our team, Hayward Wagner. Good morning, sir.
Hey guys, we're down on pit lane. Sorry I missed the throw. We have nothing falling out of the sky at the moment, but the track is still very damp. Last race really didn't dry it off much. I think the big thing that we're looking at here on pit lane, talking to the crews, everybody seems to be on the full wets, so we may see some heat management and tires later in the race. One to watch, Mast. He ran in the absolute deluge conditions yesterday in T3, had a spin, is starting right behind his teammate John Heinricy. So those guys are going to start out paired up. A couple of cars in the field also to keep an eye out for. So there's some different drivetrains here. To give you an idea, though, about the slickness of the track, we did just get a report that on a recon lap, one of our pace cars had a spin, so might be a little slippery still.
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's greasy out there for sure. As I said, Heinricy, the defending champ. I think another guy that we're going to really need to keep an eye on, even though he qualified a bit farther back than you might expect, starting 7th, the guy who won here in 2019, when the run-ups were held at VIR. Nick Leverone, who got the gold at that point, and driving for Flat Out Motorsports in another one of those Subarus.
And another one of the big names from Spec Miata realm is Marc Cefalo, who starts just in front in that neon blue MX-5 you just saw turn into turn 1. They are starting 6th and 7th, and that's because this class is just slow enough that drafting actually still matters a lot. These cars are very mildly modified, as you can see, very familiar kind of enthusiast cars, the MX-5, the FRS BRZ, V6 Mustangs, that kind of stuff, and then the RX-8 sitting in 4th. But again, working together in qualifying or finding a way to make sure no one else can draft off you in qualifying is pretty important. So those guys didn't quite get what they wanted out of qualifying, but when we say that, I mean they're still within a second and on the dry board from the leaders. This is going to be a really tight race.
Yeah, and Rick Delamare out of Snohomish, Washington, in the Osprey West Troglotech entry, that is a Scion FRS, 4th last year at Indy in this class. So I think he's going to be somebody, you know, obviously running out in the Northwest. He's probably got some pretty good rain experience, and we'll see what he's able to do. Sports car, you know, they always do their other picks, and I thought what they did this year was incredibly brave. Not in choosing Marshall Mast to win it or Marc Cefalo to be second, but choosing John Heinricy to be third. So we'll see how that plays out. I talked about that front row of Heinricy and Devin Anderson. Next up, Marshall Mast and Sergio Zlobin, who is a very experienced driver in this category. Starting in the 5th spot, the 120 of Angelica Sprehe on the motion control suspension Hoosier Subaru BRZ. Then Marc Cefalo, as we've been talking about, in the 00. Then the 186 of Leverone in his Flat Out Motorsports entry. Then in the 8th spot, the number 21 of Christopher Windsor, who is a very talented driver in the Windsor Customs Mazda MX-5. Starting in the 9th spot, the number 69, Jeremy Butts, and he's in the Windsor Customs Mazda MX-5. A couple of teammates there. Then Delamare, as I said, starting in the 10th spot at his number 5 Scion. Starting 11th is the 98 of Kevin Fryer out of Bloomington, Illinois, in the Fryer Racing Mazda Hoosier MX-5. Starting 12th and 97 of Josh Cadenow out of Harrison, New York, in the Tech Sport Racing Subaru. Starting 13th, and at number 89 is Michael Lamania, the Cornerstone Financial Advisors Mazda out of Oakland, New Jersey. Starting 14th, the 09, Morgan Mailer out of Belleville, North Carolina, in the Mazda G-Lock and Panic Motorsports Mazda. Starting 15th will be the number 142 of Paulo Salvatore out of San Antonio, Texas, the Houston region, in a Ford Mustang. Starting in the 16th spot, the 93 of Richard Grunewald out of Hilliard, Ohio, the Advisory and Consulting Services Ford Mustang. And then your final row, row 9, starting 17th, the number 4 of Ken Lundrum out of Queensbury, New York, in the North Country Subaru BRZ, and the number 26, Leanne Falk out of Tolar, Texas, in the Chris Taylor Racing Cork Sport Mazda. Let's take a look at the track map.
So VIR in the wet is definitely a unique challenge. It's not quite the heaven on earth that that was described, but the most challenging sections, braking zone for turn 1, falling off the course there and at 4A and B. Then the uphill S is very single file but very slick before coming through South Bend at turn 10. Getting the power down at turn 12, Oak Tree, is really, really challenging. Then we get into the final sector. Things to be careful for here, obviously braking zone for turn 14. That's the roller coaster, but then falling off the track at turn 16, 17. Hogpen has been the biggest mistake most have made.
Yeah, that's the treacherous spot, it seems. Certainly in the wet, it's always a bit of a dance down there, to be sure. And here we go. The Mazda, the official pace car of the series, is bringing them around. They'll duck into the pits, and then it will be down to Heinricy and Devin Anderson on that front row. And we're going to see just how things play out. Going for the gold in T4, Touring 4, here at the 59th running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs. And the field coming up. And look for that green. You'll know when it happens. Everybody fighting a little bit for position here. Visibility is still going to be an issue. And we're green. We are racing. And, man, I'll tell you, it looked like Devin Anderson timed that really well, Tomo. He might have a nose ahead on Heinricy going down into 1. Way outside. That's pretty slick out there. That's been a problem area. And Heinricy makes it work, ducks down to the inside, and locks into that first spot.
Great timing. What happened to Marshall Mast? He's down to like 7th right now, but he's 3 wide through turn 2. This is really, really intense stuff for one of the picks to win and succeed in this race. Up to 2nd or 3rd is Marc Cefalo, a great knife up from 6th. Then it is Nick Leverone, those two drivers we pointed out to watch. They've moved up very, very quickly. A big slip for Leverone.
Yeah, and Marshall Mast, I think now has worked his way back up into the 5th spot. He's got a pass done. But I'll tell you what, really close. And Devin Anderson is sticking right with Heinricy. Outside move there by Sergio Zlobin in the number 33.
Kevin Fryer also with a killer start. That's the sideways MX-5. Gets a big drift out of that maroon car, but he's moved up a bunch of positions from, I think, 11th on the grid up to about 7th. Things kind of stringing out a little bit here as Mast is now locked onto the back of Nick Leverone. The other car that lost out a little bit on the green flag, Sergio Zlobin in that RX-8.
Yeah, and interesting watching Sergio. Yeah, that RX-8. All the other Mazdas in this are MX-5, so he's going a slightly different route right now. Up through, for the first time, the climbing S's. Such an amazing piece of racetrack now into the really, really tricky South Bend at turn 10. And again, that little bit of diffusion you're seeing, it's not really mist hanging in the air. It's a little fogging on the lens. You can see it in the upper right corner there. As we hop on board, have an onboard for this one. Going to be enjoying this. That key corner right here is Christopher Windsor working through the Oak Tree turn and onto that long Madison Avenue backstraight.
Yeah, this is Christopher Windsor in the number 21 car. It's white and red with a really cool throwback livery on it, but he's kind of trying to tuck in behind, that looks like Josh Cadeno just in front of the 97, who was scrambling for rain tires earlier this week, as many were. Hoosier was basically like, guys, we don't have enough to get everybody fresh rain tires, but Cadeno found him and has actually picked up a bunch of positions from 12th.
Yeah, but look at Windsor, got a really nice, that toe, you could see it right near the end. He was able to make up some ground. Wasn't close enough to do anything to Cadeno, excuse me, as they now drop into the roller coaster. And this is one of those things, even these onboard shots don't really give you the sensation of how steep this drop is.
But you can see the cars kind of disappear from view. That's how much of a fall off there is for Hogpen. And this is the corner that everyone has, if you do drop a little bit of any amount of tread off the track, you are going for a big long ride down towards the tire wall. That was the car we were just on board with Windsor. As he crosses the line, looks like 8th.
And there it is, Heinricy up front, little bit of a margin now, just a tick over a second over Devin Anderson. And then watching Marshall Mast as he's worked his way up, back up into the 3rd spot, just slips underneath Nick Cefalo here. And Marshall rebounding nicely here after, as you noted, faded a little bit. Well,
and remember that Mast did race just last night in the worst conditions you and I agree have ever seen a race run. So this probably feels like a very easy cruise, but he is adjusting from a Mustang to an FRS. And also one thing worth noting, the first 3 cars, they look very similar, but the front 2 are much newer than the 3rd one. Marshall Mast has a slightly lighter and slightly less powerful version of that Subaru Toyota chassis. So he's probably got actually a pretty good position for these conditions.
Nope, Leanne Falk in the Chris Taylor Racing Cork Sport Mazda having a little bit of an off, avoided getting into the tires. And so hopefully, the question here is, it's so wet and everything sort of slopes down just a little bit. Sometimes you just can't get going again, but she did a nice job and was able to get back on track. So, nice drifts and slides here. We're going to be seeing that all day. And as we said, that mist, it's not a rain anymore. And if a rain line starts to develop, it's going to be interesting to see just who is doing a little bit better job of preserving these ultra soft, sticky rain tires, which on a drying surface can quickly overheat.
Be curious to see the temperature management is certainly going to be a thing. I don't think we're going to see a dry line form, but that could be wrong. Again, 15 laps or 35 minutes, whichever comes first. So we should be pretty good on race distance as long as we keep this thing green. You see the field's actually pretty compact still on lap 2.
Yeah, doing a nice job. Not a big margin. It's only 2 seconds from Heinricy to Cefalo. That's 1st to 4th. Then a little gap back to this really good battle as Sergio Zlobin is in attack mode now. And Nick Leverone, that is for the final spot in the top 5 through 14 as they head down to the roller coaster. And once again, we hop on board with Windsor, who got up alongside that time, Cadeno, but just wasn't far enough along to really commit to making the pass.
He lost more positions than we realized on lap 1. This is the battle for 10th with that FRS just in front, the silver one being 9th. So this is a 3-way battle for the top 10. Angelica Sprehe, Josh Cadeno, and riding on board with Christopher Windsor. As drivers getting more confident, you see just barely a flash of the brakes for Cadeno as he gets a big slide through Hogpen.
Hung on to it, but yeah, obviously dancing all the way down that hill. And yesterday in those atrocious conditions, right about here on the front straight, there was some puddling. People were hydroplaning. The good news is we don't see any of those real big puddles right now because this rain has let up significantly and it's drained away just a little bit.
Looks like Windsor was maybe looking for the inside, but this battle for fourth is not going anywhere. Sorry, fifth. Leverone versus Zlobin. And one of the good news is for Zlobin is those RX-8s tend to have some temperature issues. With the rotary engine, they just develop a lot of heat. And they tend to overheat a little bit through these race distances when we run in the dry. Now it's really cool, and it's getting a constant spray of cool water right on top of it. So I think the RX-8 will have a little bit better longevity than Zlobin may be used to. But it looks like he is struggling to keep up with Leverone.
Just a bit, isn't he? It's 56 degrees, just to give you that. So it's pretty brisk here. The good news is, as we said, the wind has died down, so it doesn't just cut through you like it was yesterday. As we continue to watch this great scrap at the front, Heinricy, driving as John Heinricy can, but he cannot shake Devin Anderson, is sticking in his wheel tracks. And Marshall Mast, we know how good he is, and he's right there as well. As a matter of fact, Marshall has fast lap of the race.
Yeah, it's only by a 1/10.5, but that's significant in this race, and a little bit of a different dynamic for Marshall Mast, especially if the race was dry. He's been racing a lot of the T3 cars, a lot of the Mustangs, where they tend to have maybe single car duels and they're kind of picking at each other, but this is more of a drafting class, and he was thinking, hey, racing in the dry would actually be pretty fun, but I'll take the wet too. And so far he's using that experience that he gained yesterday, really run down the field this time. Look at him, they're almost closer to Anderson than Anderson is to Heinricy.
I think so. And racing's full of coulda, woulda, shouldas, but if Mast would have got a better start from his third spot, the front end of this could look a little bit different with him a little bit farther up the order. Good look there at that number 11 of Devin Anderson. And you spent some time racing against that Tech Sport team in World Challenge competition. One thing they do is they field a quick car.
And they also usually have a big field of cars, so there's a lot of information that can be swapped between drivers. I believe Josh Cadeno, running 10th, is also out of the Tech Sport team in this field alone, let alone other track. Yesterday Rob Hines raced out of Tech Sport Racing in worse conditions, similar to what Mast experienced. So someone like Rob Hines can look to Devin Anderson and say, hey, do this, don't do this, and spread that information.
Yeah, just sorry about to jump in there, but it looked like Mast was going to try and slice down underneath Devin Anderson. Wasn't quite far enough along, but you bring up a good point. The more cars you have, the more data you can share, and you can affect different setups, try things between the cars and the like, and that information is huge. Ooh, I thought Mast was going to try one into NASCAR, opted not to, but if he squares it up here, he did. He got a nice run, and he's going to dive to the inside in 4. He's alongside, side by side through 4. Mast on the inside, but look at this. Devin Anderson staying put. He's got the inside, but better grip around the outside. Mast just rounded him off.
Yeah, leans into the rain line, and that was perfect. Marshall Mast knew he needed to make very quick work so he doesn't continue to lose time to his teammate up in front. Masterful job.
So he leaned into the awe?
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of my favorite O'Gorman lines from yesterday. But look what happens here. That little bit of side by each racing, and look at the gap that Heinricy gets. Whenever you've got a class that's momentum driven and you do this type of a thing here, everything's fine here, but the minute that Mast jumps up the inside, neither of them are running the quicker line.
And this entire corner is so slippery, so both cars completely at an equal disadvantage. As soon as you turn back the other way, the rain line right around the outside where Mast is, you see he just slings it out there, trusts that the car's going to have some grip, but we did just see what looked like was going to be a big crash, but he saved it. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw how sideways Marshall Mast was at the top of those S's.
Oh, yeah, he had it completely crossed up. Now the question is going to be, I think that margin is probably up to about a 1.5 seconds. Is he going to be able to close it down? And Windsor now has gone around. Angelica Sprehe has dropped, as has Josh Caden now. Windsor now up into 9th, and that's Jeremy Butts up in front. He's going for the 8th spot, I think.
Windsor was significantly faster, to the tune of 2 or 3 seconds, than the other cars around him, so he was probably just stuck for a minute and has now started to make progress. Similar silhouette that he's drafting off of. Maybe he can make quick work of this one.
He's got a nice little toe tucked right in. It's all a matter of you come over this rise that's coming up. He pops over to the inside, to the left here. And if he can make it work, and he does, and I think that was a pretty smart move there by Jeremy Butts. You never just want to give a guy the opportunity to drive by you, but if he fought that down to the apex, it could have ended badly for both of them. And he didn't fight it too hard, and I think that was pretty savvy. I mean, you've got to survive first here.
There's a lot of empty track here in front of Windsor. He's going to have to get to work to catch up to Kevin Fryer, who's the next car on track in that maroon MX-5. But at the front, John Heinricy takes the fastest lap of the race. Check out this battle for 4th.
This is great. Cefalo there, big look to the inside by Leverone in the blue flat out. Scion not able to do it there, but again, that side-by-side and just watching for opportunity is Jeremy Butts, but, Sergio Zlobin. But boy, I'll tell you, Cefalo, the minute that Leverone sort of squeezed that turn in and tightened up his radius, that really helped Cefalo build it up. But look how quick Leverone just comes right back after him.
You got to be careful with using all that track that Cefalo did. You saw how nervous the car got over the paint onto the runoff. In the dry, that's great, that's perfect. But here in the wet, sometimes using less of the track is actually a little bit better, as it looks like Leverone really has this Sector 1 figured out, closes right up to the back of Cefalo.
Try and straight line this much as you can here in the snake. Ooh, but off here by the number 69 of that's Jeremy Butts, who was having a really good run. He was the guy that Windsor was trying to get through on. Now I think he's just looking for a point, hopefully.
Try to find some of those corner workers. They'll help you get back on track.
Look at how slick it is. Ooh, that's probably third gear.
3 miles an hour ground speed, 300 wheel speed.
Exactly. And look there at Marshall Mast as he and you know what, Heinricy knows he's coming, because Heinricy just reset fast lap, drops into the 28s at a 2-minute 28.9, recognizing that a very quick young man is coming up behind him.
He's going purple in every sector this lap, so he's really lit the wick on that Toyota 86. Actually, a different car than we saw him claim some championships in before. That car had an accident. This is a fresh build that Marshall Mast mirrored his build off of. So Mast actually helping with the development on both of these cars, maybe wishing he wouldn't have developed Heinricy so well.
And even so, yeah, with Heinricy setting fast times, Mast continues to set personal bests as well. So he's not quite as quick as Heinricy thus far on this lap, but he's certainly not far off here. And there's lots of race time yet to go, obviously, as we said, even at 35 minutes. The previous race here in much wetter conditions, they got their full 15 laps in. So we'll see what's going to happen here. But the margin right now officially well, let me give you the update here as they slice through. It was 1.3 last time through 1.4, which mirrors exactly what we were talking about, that Heinricy about a 10th quicker on that last lap.
Yeah, Mast barely just a little bit slower, but Devin Anderson about a second and a half off that pace. So these two Phoenix cars really have something on the rest of the field, but this battle for fourth is going nowhere. Look at Zlobin around the outside of turn 1 in the RX-8 power move.
Oh,
and
and
then
a big slide. Oh, huge save by Cefalo, but he was completely crossed up and somehow is yet going to be able to maybe maintain his position in front of Leverone as they head up into turn 3. And now out, let's see, does Leverone try and go straight to the apex in 4? No, he had too much, just didn't have enough exit speed and tucks back in again, but that was one heck of a move by Sergio.
Wow, that MX-5 is a little bit all over the place for Cefalo. He's got his hands full not only with the battles, but with the car. Another big slide as Leverone's going to go with him, keeps it on the track.
Target fixation there. I can slide too.
Yeah, or you follow the guy right in front over the slick spot.
Exactly.
But that has spread them out a lot.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with that little bit of momentum, right? You get sideways like that, and up front, Sergio was just absolutely straight and true through the snake, and it just gives him that little bit of a margin. Now up through the climbing S's. And this is a spot you straighten these out as well. In the dry, you would be all over those curbs, and here you might nick it a little bit. But the last thing you want is to have it have those curbs unsettle the car and unload it too much.
Man, that MX-5 is just going. He's got a lot of work.
Ooh.
Big spin for Zlobin.
Just a little nudge of the barriers. He'll be fine. But he's losing those two spots that he worked so hard to get. And by the time he gets back on track, is he going to be able to hang on to it? So the next guy coming would be the 98 of Kevin Fryer.
That may be a symptom of just having some clear track for the first time, trying something new and getting away, getting kind of shot in the foot for it.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, sometimes it's certainly in these conditions on occasion, when you're not getting a load of spray in your face, it can be easier to follow because you can reference what the guy in front's doing. And right now, it may have been on the last lap that Heinricy got a 10th, but look at this. That margin has completely evaporated. A massively fast second sector for Marshall Mast, and he is there, and let's see what happens down into turn 1. Boy, they are just absolutely line astern. Is Mast going to try and do something here? Moves over to the inside, coming in. That inside line, it can be better in terms of braking and turn in, but then let's see, does Heinricy have the stick around the outside? He just might, Tom.
He might. Oh, big slide for the power down. That's the dry line. Mast can't get it done. Heinricy's going to slingshot around the outside, take the position back, but watch what happened in that braking zone. Mast just figured out that he's got a lot of grip on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let's see if Mast tries to square up here. Heinricy doesn't tend to leave a lot of openings, does he? And Mast realized, yeah, that's not going to happen. So opens his arc up a little bit to just try and get a little bit more of a drive now out of the really crucial corner, turn 5, because now you're starting to just let it go. In the wet here, this turn 5A is a bit tricky. Boy, Mast is just glued. Let's see what happens here. You have to be already alongside the guy to try anything into the climbing S's. And from here, really, there's not a lot you can do up until maybe a surprise move down to the inside going into Oak Tree.
This may be a moot point in these conditions, but remember, Marshall Mast dealing with a slightly less powerful, maybe about 10 horsepower, and a slightly lighter car than Heinricy. If anything, I would want the power for motoring down the straightaways here. So Mast might have to be careful with kind of staying too tucked up. He needs to create his opportunity for momentum. And being, last time through, almost a second and a half faster on raw pace, he certainly has the ability to go faster. It's just if he gets stuck.
Well, let's see. I mean, for him, obviously, that little bit of a lack of power relative to Heinricy in the toe, he can stay right there. But it might be difficult for him to make any kind of a significant, pop move. We'll see what happens here. Boy, he is right there. Here we go. Looks to the inside, but just didn't quite have the momentum to just let it, release the brake and come up the inside.
I think his best chance is down into turn 1. He learned last time he can't use the inside for power down, so he's got to make the pass done in the braking zone. It's all about getting a run through Hogpen, which is the scariest corner in these conditions. They're coming into it right now.
Yep, falls away downhill. Heinricy a little wide, gets a slide. That's going to blunt his momentum a little bit. And Mast, if he wasn't too tucked up behind him, that might allow him to do something here. Looks like there's just a little bit of a gap. It might be a little bit too much to overcome in these conditions. See, the margin last time was 0.163 as they come through, 0.19, so about the same. Here comes Mast, looks to the inside again. And again, Heinricy confident around that outside.
Pinches him more this time. Mast trying to use the outside. Big slide again, but that's actually worked out a little bit better than last lap.
Yeah, it did. It got him able to rotate and get back to power. But again, that inside line for Heinricy.
Watch the over-under.
That's what I was thinking about here. Does he have the speed? That little wiggle may have just nulled it out enough. This is a fascinating duel. I mean, one of the most experienced guys in all of SCCA national level competition, and one of the drivers who has really in the last few years just come alive in this area. Yeah,
and shown a lot of expertise with this wheel-to-wheel racecraft. Very much teammates, very similar cars. We're watching a fantastic battle here. It's just it's a mental game at this point for Marshall Mast. How do I figure this out? It's the mental game for Heinricy. Look forward. Don't make any mistakes.
And I almost think that Mast, if he doesn't get through anywhere else, based on what we've seen the last couple of times down into, Mast really sideways through that very, very tricky south bend, and that cost him a couple of car lengths.
But you see what he's doing. He's hanging back in the faster corners and giving himself somewhere to go with his speed. He's tend to be very good out of this corner as well. Not a lot of slide, not as much track used either. So he's doing the right things, in my opinion. He's given himself the right opportunities. It just hasn't really opened the door yet. And he's got about half the race yet to figure it out.
And to me, I think he needs to give himself a little bit more room once they get into 16. Because what happened, Heinricy had that little bobble and Mast was so close. Is he going to try it this time? He's alongside, he's got the overlap, and he knifes through. And Heinricy, once again, as their teammates, didn't fight it too much. Now Mast a little hot there as they dropped down into 15, but was able to rein it in. So my theory is absolutely useless at this point. We'll just continue to watch what's happening because he got it done earlier.
The question is, can Heinricy learn from Mast on where he was slower and then reapply that pressure, or is Mast about to check out as he takes over the lead, starting lap number 9 here in Touring 4?
It's going to be interesting to see when they, again, come out of Oak Tree with Heinricy having a little bit more power, if he's close enough, what he might be able to do. Mast now, let's see, is he going to protect? As he knows Heinricy has got some decent speed up and around the outside here. but Heinricy wasn't close enough, and he's just going to have to probably tuck in.
You see Mast now using the line Heinricy was already on. No drama that time for him, so he's picked up what he needs to do.
All right, and as Marshall Mast has taken the lead from his teammate John Heinricy for the first time at around the midpoint here in the run for the gold in Touring 4, we're going to take a quick pause and say a big thank you to a number of the partners that make our broadcasts possible.
Focus, guys. We're in a race to the finish, okay?
Here's where the rubber meets the road.
These initiatives move the needle, like, at all?
Well, let's shift gears a minute.
We're really kind of at the apex here.
We need to put the pedal to the metal. We need to nail those hairpin turns, cross that finish line, and take that checkered flag. Woo!
Hit the track with the world's largest motorsports calendar, track day insurance, and more. Haggerty. Let's drive together.
Introducing the first ever Mazda CX-50.
Why race? Because it's in our blood. A love of driving that pushes us as hard on the road as it does on the track. It's why we reinvented the Roadster and put a piece of it into every car we make. It's why we refine, rethink, and refine again. And it's why we'll always engineer to your heart's BPM, not simply an engine's RPM. Why race? Why indeed?
We are back as we hop on board with Christopher Windsor, currently running in the 9th spot in the number 21 Mazda MX-5 out of Thurmont, Maryland. And he's been having a great race all race long with the guy in front of him, Josh Cade. Now, sometimes he's been in front, sometimes he's been behind, but it has been a great battle. And you're right about the graphics scheme that that Christopher has on that car. Very Wood Brothers, if you obviously have an understanding of the history of the sport.
Exactly. Love a good throwback livery, and he's losing touch just a little bit with Josh Cade, but again, they've swapped positions multiple times, both turning personal best sectors and laps over and over again. And what that tells me is maybe this track's becoming a little bit better every single lap.
I think so. I mean, you know, as we said, the rain had had essentially stopped before the race even started. There was a slight mist, and so nothing really significant is coming down on the track, and they are moving some water up. It's not a dry line, but it's a line that has a lot less moisture on it at this point. So I think everybody's gaining a little bit of confidence. Problem is, then if you do something and you get off that line and you're exceeding the limits of that wetter portion of the track, you're in for a little bit of a sketchy moment or two. But just fun to see what we're watching. Yeah, I mean, Marshall Mast has dropped into the 26s.
Yeah, he's starting to put personal and sector session best lap times on the board, pulling out just a couple of tenths every single lap from John Heinricy at the front. This battle we're riding on board with is for 8th and 9th as they work their way into the uphill S's. That red and white MX-5 we were just riding on board with.
Absolutely. Beautiful section of the track, and just flowing through there. Doing an absolutely incredible job. It's still Devin Anderson sitting in the 3rd spot, but now about 12 seconds back of the battle for the lead. Then Nick Leverone sits in the 4th spot, another 10 seconds back, but he's a couple clear of Cefalo now. And then Sergio, with that big moment up in Oak Tree, has dropped off of them to the tune of another 12 seconds or so at this point. But here is that lead duo, and let's see, it was 0.9 the last time by. And it looks like Marshall, although Heinricy put up a really good third or second sector there as well, and that margin is almost identical to what it was.
Yeah, Mast looking a little bit better in Sector 1 where they were just starting the lap. As we take a look back a little further in the field, this looks like the battle for 13th between Michael Lamena and Jeremy Butts on the opposite end of the track, which again, that's just haze on our camera lens more than it is in the air. This track definitely becoming, is that sunlight? Glimmering on the back of those MX-5s?
Oh,
we haven't seen that in a little while.
How sweet that would be. Oh, look at this, side by side on the way down. And obviously Jeremy Butts have been running much farther up into the field, up into that battle with Caden now in Windsor. So he's got some speed in that car, and he's just fighting his way back through things. And looks like he's been able to make that spot and has moved around on Michael Lamena. Yep, now down through that roller coaster. Yeah, that line, the racing line now that everybody's been using, yeah, definitely does not have any kind of the level of moisture that offline it has now. So there's some grip there.
And all these drivers starting the race on rain tires, which have a very deep and chunky tread block to them. So the car is going to move around on the surface a lot more than they would on their racing slicks. A lot of the sliding and floating you see these cars doing now at this point is actually because of the tire, not because of the surface. They're just not as precise on those tires as now this battle for Zlobin and Fryer is heating up.
Yeah, that would be squirm, right?
Exactly.
I often say it's just the squirm of the tread block here as we're watching this one up and through. You know, getting to the point now that they're a lot more confident in just throwing it up and over the curbs, aren't they? So that in and of itself tells you that the grip is starting to really show up a little bit. And here's the number 33 of Sergio running the RX-8. And then right behind him, Kevin Fryer in the number 98. That is the Mazda MX-5. And putting in a nice ride.
He got a killer start. If
he did.
If you go back to those first laps on our highlight reel at the end of the show, you're going to see that car just jump way up close to the podium and then has kind of settled in here into that 7th spot right behind Zlobin.
Boy, he is tucked in behind right now. And we'll see what he's going to be able to do. Fryer coming out of Bloomington, Illinois, but races out of the Washington, D.C. region. And he is there. And let's see, does he try anything? He looks to the inside, just not enough to be able to get up there. And you know, for that you've got to really be alongside a lot sooner than that, because the track eventually does that bend to the right, and if you're not placed right, then you're going to get the door slammed on you pretty solidly.
In these conditions, also one of the scarier braking zones, just because the track is bending, going down, going up. There's all these things happening, and you saw, I think, for the pass for John Heinricy and Marshall Mast, Heinricy didn't really want to find out what would happen if he ended up offline. He kind of let that pass happen, so that would be maybe a little bit of hesitation from Kevin Fryer to make that move as well in the same spot.
Well, that time it looked perhaps like Sergio had turned in a little earlier into a hog pen, and it looked like he had to breathe it getting down to the bottom, or he was going to push right off the track. Boy, you could see the squirm under the brakes there too.
So cool to see these cars, very much like you would get them off the showroom floor, which means they drive like that. There's not a lot of extra stuff helping them around. They just move around so much. I love these touring classes.
Well, I mean, everything in this class is mechanical, you know. Obviously the engine and the power, but there's no aero, so it's all down to the mechanical grip the car makes through the suspension setup and the tires. And that's you know a driver that really has that touch and has that feel. That's where they can shine.
Yeah, manipulating the weight comes in a lot with these more stock vehicles. They don't have very stiff springs. They don't have very fancy shocks necessarily. So putting the weight where you need it, especially in the dry, is really, really critical. Now the RX-8 stretching the legs a little bit more on the straightaways. We've seen that over the last couple of years, that the RX-8 tends to be faster in a straight line. A little bit heavier of a car is now you see gets a bit behind in those uphill S's, and Fryer tucks right back up.
Got a bit behind in his steering.
In his float.
All right, I'll go with that. I like that. Well, and you know, one thing that I've said for years is a fast lap around any racetrack, regardless of condition, it's a lesson in applied physics. I mean, that's really what it is. There's an art to it, but there's also a science. And man, I'll tell you, that was an excellent exit from Oak Tree for Kevin Fryer. As Sergio got up on that exit curb a lot more than he wanted. Fryer is alongside. Now he gets the nose ahead. Will we see that RX-8 start to out-pedal him a little bit? Looks like it is right there once they get into the climb. that RX-8 a little bit more stout under the hood and eases back in front.
It's going to shut the door. The MX-5 not necessarily known for its aerodynamic prowess with its stock bodywork, so that's also an issue with being a slightly down on power. And Zlobin moved a little bit wide at hog pen, but keeps his foot in it, and then come back into MX-5 territory.
Looks like somebody on a previous lap turning in there hauled a bunch of mud up onto the track, and I think Zlobin went around that and then found he was offline a little bit. But you see the different lines here, and Zlobin works that outside down through hog pen, but sometimes it looks like he's going to push right off the track and he has to lift. That time it stuck a little bit better for him. So we're on lap 13 of 15. As the leaders up front, Marshall Mast, John Heinricy have already taken that, and Marshall Mast up now by 1.7 seconds. Look at this move here. Fryer thinks about it, goes down to the inside, has a little bit of overlap here, and it's going to be a matter of Zlobin as that RX-8 right dead center of the track.
Giving him nowhere to go, but in a very fair way. They're still side by side. Fryer's going to try to sweep the outside. That's the rain line. This should work out okay for him.
Look at this now. Now, here's the question. Turn 4. If he can stay around the outside here, he's going to be okay. Now to Zlobin, we saw you can ramp the outside here, but he didn't get turned in enough alongside, did he? And he eventually just had to tuck in.
No, and it didn't get a great run off of the lower S's either, so he may have to wait till that back straight. It's going to be critical to get a good exit off of the Oak Tree corner for that RX-8 as they're coming up on a little bit of lap traffic and potentially an awkward spot.
I love passes that take 3 or 4 corners to complete. That is great racing, and that is exactly what that was. And it looked like Zlobin again got a little bit behind in his floating. And you can see it just cost you that little bit of momentum. Now they have some lap traffic as well as they head up into Oak Tree, both through. Nice job. That car paying great attention to the blue flags from our corner marshals. And here's that exit he needed. Not bad.
Not bad, but I don't think it was any better than Fryer's.
Right. Now it's just a matter of pure ponies all the way down the backside here, as here he comes. Your leader, Marshall Mast, should be picking up. He's starting lap 14 now, I believe. Nope, 13. Starting lap 13. Okay. Nope, now it says 14. All right. A couple of different things, indicators here, but nonetheless, he's, boy, in one lap, that went from 1.6 to 3.1.
Yeah, I think as the conditions are coming back to the track a little bit and the track is getting potentially a bit faster, we've seen Marshall Mast be willing to take more risks than a lot of the other drivers, not in this class, not only in this class, but in others too. And as he's taking those risks, he's probably challenging the conditions and optimizing them just a little bit better than anybody else on track, as before when they were pretty bad. He and Heinricy were very, very similar on pace, but now Mast has checked out to the tune of 1.5 seconds that last lap and continuing to pull away. Devin Anderson kind of in no man's land. Leverone has gotten by Cefalo for 4th and started to walk away a bit from that MX-5 as well. So things kind of spreading out in the later stages. Again, changing conditions is what we expected.
Well, and I'll tell you, the one thing that, as you were talking about it, watching Marshall Mast, he's using way more of the track than Heinricy. You know, going into 4, he has no issue going right to the track edge before turn-in, really opening up the radiuses, using every bit of track. And that puts you at risk, you know, when you're half a foot from the edge of the track versus 3 feet and something goes wrong. But you're right, he's willing to do it.
Yeah, he's also willing to get the car slightly rotated and driving it through the corner with the back end, whereas we see Heinricy tends to drive through the front end of the car, if you know what I mean by that. He's using the steering a lot more than the rotation, as now this battle for 8th is heated up with Cadenau and Windsor still can't get away from each other.
Yeah, Cadenau, after Windsor had opened up a very small gap, Cadenau has just run him right back down again. And good to have this onboard shot to be able to watch this battle from this perspective, as here we go up and into the exit of the Snake.
Watching the mirror, Cadenau right behind, just closing up ever so slightly as they come into the uphill S's, now closing up big time. Unfortunately, there's not really anywhere good to go with that in this climbing S's.
This, you just try and straighten it out as much as possible. And I mean, really, the only raid line through the climbing S's is don't touch the curbs. Yeah. Otherwise, there's just nowhere else for you to go anyway. All right. And white flag coming out from Marshall Mast. Ended up on the podium in that race yesterday. I mean, and that was a race of survival of extraordinary circumstances, and he still ended up on the podium. But obviously, this is the one that he's got an opportunity. One more lap, Tomo, just hit your marks, and he's golden.
Tell you what, Heinricy, though, responds with the fast lap of the race, gains half of that distance back last time through on Marshall Mast, whether there was lap time or lap traffic or just straight up driving involved with that. I just don't think there's enough time as Heinricy will really drive in the car this lap.
Isn't he? Throwing it around. He knows this is it. This is the last opportunity for him to add to that remarkable tally of 16 gold medals and 26 medals total, including silvers and bronzes here at the runoffs. And one thing, John is not prone to making mistakes.
He's not very often, no. And you'll see in these uphill S's the difference in driving style. Watch Mast get the car a little bit sideways. You see the back of the car wiggling around behind him, whereas Heinricy is going to come through, and you can see a lot less movement and drama on that the black machine. But right now, Heinricy is definitely closing. Perhaps Mast knows this is the last lap. I only need to do exactly what I need to do and no more.
I would think so. They're pretty savvy, and his teammates, John's not just going to stuff it up the inside and knock him off the track. And John really going for the exit here out of Oak Tree, used up every piece of racetrack here to try and flow some speed. And look at Mast, he's doing the bob and weave down there, trying to break the toe, not give Heinricy anything to latch onto here as they make for the last time to climb up to the top of Madison Avenue. Meanwhile, we go back to this one in Windsor, through on, and Cade now is attacking on Windsor for that 8th spot. Boy, this has been a good one too.
The whole race, that's our camera car in the lead right here over the 97 of Cadenau, but we saw Cadenau a little quicker on these straightaways with that BRZ. See if he can close up. Again, nowhere really good to go with this. He's going to need a really good run out of Oak Tree, I think.
Meanwhile, down through Hogpen for the last time, your leader, Marshall Mast, out of Denver, Pennsylvania, onto the front straight. He is going to add another gold medal to his tally. He's had 3 in the other class in T3 and brings this one home with a great win over teammate John Heinricy, who started on pole. Final margin, watch for that, 1.25 seconds. So a good one there. And here comes Devin Anderson. A pretty lonely race, but you know what? He'll be okay with it because it means he's got a medal hanging around his neck. He'll be bringing home a bronze medal at the runoffs, Tomo.
Yeah, great race. We never saw him put a foot wrong anywhere. Starting second, finishing third, and the feather in the cap for John Heinricy. It may not be a gold medal, but he did get the fast lap right there at the end. Let's watch this battle for 8th round itself out. Cadenau not able to get a good enough run down the back straight to motor through Windsor. Ooh, but he's trying it.
He is. He got that nose. He went right through that mud. He didn't care, and he's on the rear deck right now. He is right there filling the mirrors, and it's all a matter of, does Christopher Windsor not make a mistake down at the bottom? Flowed, went right to the edge of the track, but that number 21 stuck. But here comes Cade now. He's got to run. He pops to the outside as Windsor goes down to defend. They are side by side to the line. It is a drag race. Cade now noses ahead and gets there. Cade now takes the 8th spot. Wow, what a finish here at the runoffs at VIR, and a remarkable last sequence of corners for Josh Cadenau. And that's what I love about this stuff. Was that for a medal? No, it was for 8th, and it meant everything to get it here. That's what the runoffs mean to these folks.
Yeah, spectacular stuff. Nothing better than the feeling of knowing you're going to get there, just nosing ahead and just ever so slightly coming in again from 12th on the grid to come home 8th, picking up every single spot. It's just the best feeling.
Yep, and in some fairly sketchy conditions. Yeah, that looks like there might even be shadows on the cars out there in spots now. How about that? Here are your results. Mast with a gold. Heinricy with, check this out, 27th medal earned in runoffs competition. Devin Anderson, his first in 3rd. Then Nick Leverone, a good solid run into that 4th spot. Marc Cefalo rounding up the top 5. Kevin Fryer, a fighting 6th. Sergio Zlobin in 7th. And then Josh Cadenau and Christopher Windsor, one of the best battles on the track. And rounding out your top 10, Angelica Sprehe doing a really, really nice job as well. And getting it done here at the runoffs. And as the skies are brightening just a little bit. Now we understand we might be, literally in that sort of calm before the return of the storm window here, because that storm is still sort of moving through. We'll see what happens as the day unfolds. But wow, they put on a great show on a drying track. Never really got a dry line. It was always a little greasy on that line. But as you can see, there's none of the puddling on the line that we had. And they were really starting to push the limits.
Well, and so take a look at that highlight package. Watch the maroon MX-5 in the background when we get to it, sweeping around the outside very, very close at the beginning of this race. Ooh. The bigger question for me also becomes, what do the rest of the races do after this?
Yeah.
Tire choice is going to be interesting, but this field was so tight. Here's Mast on the back of Anderson for second.
Got that pass done down into the really tricky turn 4 and completed it here. And this is where you can just see the confidence of Mast as he just went around the outside. He had all that experience from yesterday as well. And then this battle was just on for the entire race. This is when Windsor got the spot and moved around Josh Cade now. Actually, that wasn't Josh at that point, was it? That was Jeremy Butts, I think he went through. Then Butts had a spin. Look at that moment for Cefalo, and big slides. There is the spin that we also had for the 33 of Sergio Zlobin. And then this is the move for the lead. Came a few corners sooner than we anticipated it, but Mast just made it work.
Ever so slightly easier than we expected,
Yeah.
too, to come home with another national championship here at VIR.
Absolutely great run by Marshall Mast, and he is with Hayward.
Marshall, welcome back to the Runoffs podium. This time you get the top step. How's it feel?
It feels great. Yeah, after yesterday in T3 and that monsoon, you know, I had a little bit of track knowledge, which I definitely used to my advantage today. And yeah, getting victory lane here with a T4 car kind of makes it all worth it.
How nerve-wracking is it to be trying to make a pass in the wet, knowing that if you get this wrong, you're probably going to have to fix both the cars?
Yeah, that did cross my mind a couple times, especially on side-by-side down in 1, 2, 3, and 4 like that. But we both kept it super clean. So it was pretty awesome racing with John for the first time.
Well, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Phoenix on the 1-2. You going to take the victory lap?
Yeah, yep, thank you.
So we'll send you back around for one more. We're going to bring John up. So tell me about the team orders letting Marshall by so easy.
The team orders were that don't let Marshall pass you no matter what.
And how'd that go?
It didn't go very well.
Well, congratulations on a silver. How was the race for you?
The race was pretty good. Yeah, just about the only thing, tires were starting to kind of go as it's drying up, but the car worked great, and I made a couple mistakes, and obviously Marshall was right on top of all those, so he did an awesome job. Awesome job. I was watching and Fred, come on, make a mistake. Come on, make a mistake, and he didn't.
Well, congratulations to you. At least you got a really good look at him there at the end.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and everybody else.
And you did have fastest lap of the race. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Was that at the end?
They would have to tell me, but I think so, yeah.
Yes.
As it was drying up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and grab our third place finisher. Come on up. Devin, you started on the front row. You end up on the podium. How was the race?
It was good. I mean, I'm battling a legend and an incredibly talented driver, Marshall Mast. I'm happy that I was just able to compete. I mean, Nick Leverone and Marc Cefalo are incredibly great rain drivers. The fact that I was able to stay ahead of them and run consistent lap times, I'm thrilled. I couldn't be happier.
Well, it's always great to see smiles on the podium. Congratulations on the bronze.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, also, thank you, Tech Sport, Redline, and K1.
Yeah, nice job by Devin Anderson. Obviously has a lot of track knowledge here with the team based here. And as we're watching Marshall Mast enjoying the victory lap with the gold draped around his neck, we're going to bid you farewell here from our coverage of the Run for the Gold in Touring 4 here at the 59th running of SCCA's National Championship Runoffs. For Tom O'Gorman and Hayward Wagner, I'm Greg Creamer. Thanks so much. A lot of racing yet to come here at VIR.